please.
Here, dear.
Hello, Mr. Harker here. There's a young lady who seems quite distressed.
My friends, now I want to go ahead and I want to get to my review tonight for The Invitation, Chad. And you're probably asking me, Chris, what the hell is The Invitation? Let me tell you. Very few people know about this movie, Chad. Like, there were 2 big releases this week, and I don't think anyone's fucking talking about them. Like, no one cares. I don't think they've reviewed very well. Audiences certainly aren't going out to see them, chat in droves. Like, for this particular movie, which, for those who don't know, I love it. They say that, it's a film inspired by Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is goddamn Bram Stoker's Dracula, chat, just in a modern setting, which not necessarily a bad thing. But, this movie stars Nathalie Emmanuel, who you've seen in a number of things. She's one of the supporting characters most recently in the Fast and Furious series. She kind of became a name became a bigger name initially in Game of Thrones, chat. She played Second Banana to Daenerys Targaryen. She was her interpreter. Melisande, I think that's the character's name. Forgive me, I forget the name off the top of my head. But, that's where she got her start, chat. And I always liked her. And that's like, okay, cool. And she has some charisma in those Fast and Furious movies. And then we have another actor in here, Thomas Doherty. And he's also the co-lead, if you will, the co-male lead. But for those who don't know, movie heavily inspired by Bram Stoker's Dracula. You can tell because it wears it on its bloody sleeve. It's very easy to tell, chat. And it follows this young woman, played by Nathalie Emmanuel, who, after her mother has died, chat, from some unknown disease, goes to meet her very, very, very white and vampiric family in the UK for the first time, only to discover their dark secrets, chat. Something has kept them tied together for centuries. They're vampires. We know that a lot of them are vampires, or they work for a vampire. That's what it is, chat. Okay. Let me just tell you right now. Kind of going over my overall thoughts on the movie. Because, I'm being very dismissive. I'm being very snarky. Nasty, some might say. I would say this. Be positive at the start. I feel like there's some likable leads in this movie. I feel like Nathalie Emmanuel, it was possible for her to be a likable lead in the film, along with Thomas Doherty, And it's like, this is kind of nice. The problem is, The Invitation is just ultimately very predictable, very trite, and something that you've seen time and time again when it comes to horror films, romantic movies, or horror romance movies in general. That's sadly the case with this. Now, listen, I'm a big fan of like classic Universal monster movies, chat. And I'm always willing to see kind of contemporary reinterpretations of these creatures and characters over time. And we've gotten some fun stuff, chat, over the last several decades, certainly the last 20 years. We've gotten like fun action-adventure films like, the 1999 Mummy with Brendan Fraser, which has always been close to my heart, chat. It kind of feels like, a bit of a spiritual successor to Indiana Jones. Certainly borrows a lot of that material. I feel like that movie works for the most part. It's very fun. It's aged very well, aside from some, iffy CGI. And then we've also gotten some more kind of dark, moody thrillers like 2020's The Invisible Man, chat, by Leigh Whannell, which is one of my favorite movies that year. The problem is that there have also been numerous forgettable stinkers for years, for decades. Like, we'll get a couple good ones every once in a while. Like, this is great. Love this new version. But sadly, the Invitation falls into that very forgettable, stinky category, chat. I feel like, especially one of the 2 leads, I feel like Nathalie Emmanuel and Thomas Doherty, they have that charisma. I feel like they have that charisma and they have that chemistry. And you want to see these 2 very pretty people fuck each other. All right? I was like, I want it. I definitely want that. But the problem is the film story, the writing, the dialogue, and just the over-familiarity just makes them really boring characters to watch. Additionally, and very humorously, I noticed while watching this movie is that this movie is trying so bad to be Get Out, chat, Jordan Peele's Get Out, except with vampires. Let me know if this sounds a little familiar, chat. You have a girl with no family and guilt over her previous familial situation, chat. She has a very comedic and very fat best friend who cracks jokes about white people being crazy, and in hindsight, right, but, sounds very similar. And it features numerous obnoxious, seemingly unaware and aloof white people with very creepy traditions who attempt to trick the lead character of Nathalie Emmanuel, which leads to an inevitable slaughter action sequence at the end of the movie. It's fucking Get Out. And, the thing is, like, Get Out had this, critiques about, various aspects of society and how, white people viewed black culture and appropriated it and didn't even realize they were doing it at the time. It's like, wow, this is very cutting, but it also at the same time just had these really compelling characters and performances and set up this great lore, and it felt very original, chat. In this movie, it doesn't. It just like, okay, let's just do the vampire, let's do Dracula, except let's just make it Get Out too. And it just doesn't work because I see what you're borrowing from. It's very, very obvious. And all the vampire stuff just feels like window glass. You feel like you could literally put this in any type of, like, you can have any type of movie monster in this. It's just like, okay, we got mummies, zombies, Frankenstein monster. Let's go with vampires. Let's go with vampires. I mean, that's a classic. Well, let's just do that. But that's what this is. You think, okay, it's from, listen. What's going to eventually happen, what actually has been happening, Chad, you're going to have filmmakers who are going to be very inspired by Jordan Peele's work. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Some of the, the filmmakers who have been inspired by past filmmakers have released amazing content over the years. There's no question. But it's like, okay, you're doing something familiar. Okay, fine. You have vampires, which, we've gotten a lot of vampires. This year, we haven't gotten a lot of vampire films. But, hey, at least you're gonna have some vampires. You're going to make them scary. And that's the other thing, too. The scares are just too far between each other. And we're just stuck with a romance, between Nathalie Emmanuel and totally not the vampiric lord of the estate, Thomas Doherty. And we just know exactly where it's going to go. And for whatever reason, the film's about, I want to say it's like an hour and 40 minutes. At least it felt like it's definitely under 2 hours. But I'm like, this is probably over a half hour. But I feel like you could have cut like 20 minutes of this movie or just add some more scary sequences because they don't have enough in this film. But they constantly keep teasing us that the main British lord is a certain vampire from history. Like, there's a scene now. Listen, chat. Like, they kind of say it in the trailers, in the marketing. Like, if you want to go in blind, don't watch the trailer of the movie because they tell you the story. Instead of watching an hour and 40 minutes, they pretty much edit it down to about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's like, all right, you got it. You got it. You mean everything. All the major big sequences that are in the movie are in the trailers. Like, okay, well, there you go. The thing is, though, it just does in a way that's it's like, come on. I'm not fucking stupid. Like, they literally have a scene where Thomas Doherty, who's revealed to be the vampire lord, okay, and she's like, what are you? And he's like, oh, I have had many names over the centuries. I have been called this in the old country. I was called this, Nosferatu here. Your Hollywood films have had adaptations about me. And she's like, you're not, and he's like, I'll never tell. It's like, you're Dracula. You're goddamn Count Dracula, all right? And for whatever reason, they refuse to say he's Count Dracula, and here he's called Walter. His name is Count Walter. I'm like, just call him Dracula. Like, I don't, like, this whole movie, the whole premise is he wants a new bride. He wants a new bride, and he's in the mood for chocolate this time, Chad, as they say in the film. Oh, you just want someone different. You want a different flavor. And it's like, okay, I get it, because he's had vanilla. He has had vanilla for fucking centuries, Chad. He wants something a little different, all right? Something American, something black. I mean, just come out and say it. Always this tiptoeing around thinking you're being cute. The movie thinks it's cute. That's the problem. And it's not very cute, chat. It's just like we're spinning our wheels here. We're going through the motions. It's like, come on, let's just get to the fun stuff. And there's never a lot of fun stuff, chat. There's always a hint of something fun. Always like, ooh, this will be a kind of creepy sequence. But then it's like, you cut. All the graphic violence, chat, they cut away from it. I mean, there's a couple of scenes like the end. We'll get to the end in a second. But for the most part, all the action, all the gore, all the horror, it's just there's not enough there. And you just have these two characters just flirting and just start fucking. I just honestly, and they're hot, and they're very sexy people. I'm like, yeah, I would like to see these two people make love, chat, sweet love, but it's too little, too late, in my opinion. But I loved it how they just, for whatever reason, they refused to say he was Dracula. It's not like it's a rights issue. Like, you can make a Dracula movie. Anyone can make a Dracula movie. Just do it. Why didn't you want to say he's Dracula? I don't know. But he's Dracula, chat. Spoiler. Now, we do get to the third act where inevitably, you'll be my bride, my very mulatto bride. And it plays out how you would expect, where she gets powers, and she goes on a fucking tear, chat, literally. The problem is that it's like, okay, now we're going to have some fun with this. We're going to get a nice little action scene the last 15 or so minutes. It's just all done terribly. It doesn't help that you have a lot of terrible CGI. And another thing, Chad, consistent. It's just crazy. This is like the third movie in a row where they have terrible CGI fire effects. Like, listen, if you have a low budget and you're using CGI, do not use fire. Don't have fire in your movie. Like Orphan First Kill, which is much better than this film, Chad. Much more fun. Like, of all the horror thrillers I've seen in the last couple of weeks, this is the one you should check out. Like, Orphan First Kill is the one you should check out. But one of my big criticisms at the end, especially in the technical aspects of that film, is that you have a third act which features CGI fire throughout. It's like, this looks fake as shit. And they have a shit ton of CGI fire here, and it looks fake as shit. So stop using it, chat. Also, the stunt choreography it feels very awkward, and it feels like the cinematographer had to shoot around. Like, there's other vampires or whatever that fight, okay? The problem is, you have these people in the movie who clearly don't have training, or they didn't really choreograph this, so a lot of the fighting's like that, kind of like wrestling, like they're going back and forth like this, or pushing each other, and the camera's like cutting like quick cuts, and I'm like, this is kind of, and they're trying to make it more exciting, but it's just not, because I'm getting whiplash watching it, and it ends very disappointingly. Also, the movie ends on a really weird note, and it kind of, I'm kind of confused by it. Do you guys mind? Do you mind if I spoil the movie? All right, there'll be spoilers right here. Tune out, Chad, if you want to see this. I wouldn't recommend it, honestly. There's not a lot there. So, Nathalie Emmanuel escapes Dracula, right? And Dracula dies, I guess, which then all of his powers are gone, and all of his acolytes lose all of his influence and powers and stuff. And then at the end of the movie, she, along with her fat friend, who she brings over to the UK, they decide to then kill the other family members who are a part of like Dracula's cult, which is like, that's kind of interesting. But she kind of changes her outfit, and she's like, she's like, are you Blade? They kind of make her out to be like Blade, except there's no vampires anymore. And the sassy black friend's like, I'm going to beat this white man's head in with this baseball bat. And they're like, okay, let's go in and kill this guy. And they walk in, chat, and we assume they beat this guy's head in with a baseball bat, but it's very weird. It's a very weird note to end on. It's like, oh, are you vampires? Not really. You're a lot like vigilantes now at that point, but it's like, okay, the movie just ends. And it's not, I guess, is this set up for a sequel? They're going to go after the other members of the family? I don't know. It just felt like we got to bring the sassy, funny, fat friend back for, a little comedic bit, because we forgot about, them later on in the movie. And it's like, murder. And it's like, okay. It kind of just goes, it just ends. It's like, all right, that's it. When it comes to the characters, again, like, Nathalie Emmanuel, I really want to see her where she really gets to flex, because she's always been just second banana to so many people, chat, whether it is in Game of Thrones, like to Daenerys Targaryen, she's always seems to be a very meek character. In Fast and the Furious, she seems to be a very meek character. And here it's like, okay, now that she's the lead, this is about her. But sadly, it's just the material. It's just not, it's very clunky dialogue. And a lot of it, like, constantly, like, with her friend is like, white people be crazy. And again, they're correct. The white people are crazy, chat, in the movie. But still, it's like, it's just not a lot there. Her flirting back and forth with Tom Doherty, who plays Count Walter, is sexy. I'm like, yeah, okay. But outside of that, it doesn't really stand on its own. They like to think, they want you to think that, oh, she's standing up for herself. And I'm just like, it doesn't really earn it. Kind of feels half-baked because of the dialogue and what she's doing. You know, Thomas Doherty, he's kind of like slimy, sexy, creepy. You know, it's like, oh yeah, when you see him like vampire, like automatically, Chad, out of all the white people in this movie, you're like, which one of these creepy white people is the vampire? I'm like, that guy. He just looks like a vampire, Chad. He's got that, oh God, that Cillian Murphy vibe. He's like a slightly, like he's like a more handsome version of Cillian Murphy, but still kind of salamandery a little bit. And yeah, it's like, okay, he has all the charms and things of a vampire. The problem is, so there's a big shift with him in the movie. Because, you know, okay, I know he's going to be the villain. I get that. But for the most part, he's really sensitive, and he's clearly just putting on the moves to charm her. I know it's part of like Dracula's whole, I mean, that's his thing. But there just comes a point in the film where he's like, all right, the facade's over. And he just becomes fucking nuts. He's like, and where he's just over the top. He's at 11. I get the sense like he had fun playing this character, but it's fucking whiplash shit. Like, we were over here and they were all the way over here with him now. And he's like, you'll be mine, you'll be my bride, and you'll love it. I'll never say who I am. It's like, okay. It's a little too much. He's laying out a little too thick, Chet, in my opinion. And then you have the other two characters, which again are just stereotypes. You have two of Dracula's wives. Actress Stephanie Cornelissen, hope I'm saying her name, plays Victoria, who is this giant. I will say this, they were inspired by Resident Evil Village because she is the thick dommy mommy vampire wife. Because she's taller than anyone. She's taller than even like Dracula in the movie. And I'm like, I see what you're doing here. But again, she's just, as soon as she comes on, she's just an asshole, and she's just an asshole for the rest of the movie. That's it. Like, there's no depth to her. She doesn't really get a lot of things to do. She sucks on the finger one time and goes, and that's it. Well, you have the other one, Alan Bowden, who plays the character of Lucy, and she's just the meek, really shy, very naive vampire wife, Chad. And you could see where Dracula would just kind of get bored with them. Is like, I want someone new. As he says, I want someone exotic. You want someone black, right? Christ. And then you have like you have the fat friend. And I don't mean to mock her weight, but that's what they have her in there. You're the funny fat friend where you don't get a man. Okay, you just make comments about white people be crazy. That's all you do, and that's played by Courtney Taylor as Grace. And she's the oh God, what's the actor's name? The TSA agent from Get Out. That's her role. It's exactly her role, except she has less to do in this movie. There's no like, ooh, she gets like a little sequence here where she actually figures things out. No, she's just like, I'm just there to make jokes. That's all she serves in the movie. And then you have Sean Pertwee, Chad, who's probably best known for playing Alfred in Gotham. And listen, I'll say, thank you, Lil Rel. Thank you, Chris Harris. But Sean Pertwee, he plays Alfred in Gotham, and here he's playing a butler, but he's an evil, racist butler. He's an evil, racist butler who loves vampires. And that's his whole thing. Like, he's very uncomfortable, like, around black people. It's like, oh, listen, I'll tolerate the vampires, but the blacks, I cannot tolerate them. And I'm like, okay, all right, sure. So he's Alfred, except if he was racist and literally worked for a Batman. Get it, chat? See? So I feel like that was stunt. I'm gonna tell you right now, that was fucking stunt casting with him. He's a butler and he works with a Batman. There you go. I just felt like they did that on fucking purpose. Don't boo me. That was brilliant. I knew what they were trying to do with that. I was like, oh, I see what's going on here. I was like, oh, that's kind of okay. All right. Not exactly clever, very on the nose, but still. But you know what I was saying, Chad? It's not doing anything different when it comes to the Dracula story, to a lot of vampire films. And it's very much that classic vampire story. It's like, we don't burn in sunlight and shit. Actually, they change it up, where it's not even the stakes of the heart. Like, that stakes of the heart is like, we can brush that off. That ain't no problem. In the movie, they set up like, you cut their head off or burn them alive, and that's it. That's what you got. And anything stake of the heart, not gonna work. Even though they try to do it multiple times. Well, sometimes they do it. I don't know. It's inconsistent with their old rules and lore they established in the movie, chap. But it does nothing different in terms of vampire stuff that we've seen before. The modern, you could have maybe done something with the modern. Like, I wouldn't mind a modern version of Dracula, but maybe with the same amount of effort put into something like The Invisible Man, chap, most recently. I thought that was a really cool, like it was very, very reverent of the original material, but it had these modern sensibilities that's like, oh wow, I could totally see this working, and it really focused on the obsession that the Jack character, Dr. Jack Griffin has in that novel. And except in this time, it's like he's obsessed and he's very controlling and he wants to control this woman, This one, it doesn't have that. It's just like, it's a Dracula story except black girl. There you go. That's the new thing. Now the actors get really anything to do outside what I told you. A lot of it's a little too over the top or just not enough. It's kind of blasé. And yeah, it's cheap. You could tell it's cheap. The set, I will say this, the house that they're at, the inside of the house is fun. But even then, like how it's shot, like the lighting in this movie is not that great. Like I compare it to like what made this movie a little bit better if they kind of had like that soft focus and that cinematography that like Orphan First Kill had recently. I was like, if they had that, I was like, because that movie's like surprisingly like really moody, And we spend like time in these places where it's very cold, like in the first part of or first Kill we're in Estonia, or like the first third, and then the rest of the movie we're in Connecticut. I was like, this is nice. Like had maybe like this movie had that kind of aesthetic. And that environment, that same thing. This would have helped, but still, I don't know if they probably would have used it well in any case, Chad. It's just very flat how they shoot this and how they light it. But yeah, no, it's a disappointment, Chad. Like another disappointing vampire film, Chad. I recently talked about my favorite vampire films of all time. This is not making the list. This and Day Shift is not making the list. I do, in hindsight, Day Shift is probably better than this movie. Because at least there's like, there's some laughs and there's some chuckles and things. And it's like, there's some crazy sequences. Like the one thing I will say, there's some fun choreography in the movie. I mean, like it stops when you get to the third act of that film. But there's some fun choreography, right? And this one, there's none of that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's the lowest of rentals or possibly some old bullshit chat. Again, I didn't outwardly hate it, I just recognized what it was attempting to do, and it just failed spectacularly, chat. So, yeah, I don't know. I would, the thing is, like, I would never see this again. I don't know if I would there's other, like, types of vampire films that are similar to this that I would recommend. And, like, even with Day Shift, I might recommend to people to check out if, it's a Netflix movie, it's an action film. If you like Jamie Foxx, sure, he has charisma, he doesn't change the character, but, he's doing his thing. In this movie, there's not really a lot of that, unless you wanted to see two really hot people fuck for a bit. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But outside of that, yeah, it's kind of a waste of time. So, yeah, for me, chat, you know what, I was going to give this a low rental, but in thinking of it in hindsight, there's just better Dracula stories out there. So I would give this probably some old bullshit on the double tilted scale. It's a waste of time, sadly. So there you go. Yeah, that was the story, Chad, of good old Nathalie, Emmanuel, and Count Walter. I hope you do. But what about you guys? Did anyone else see The Invitation? Probably not. There was only one other person in the theater with me, chat. It was just the two of us. Just the two of us watching this movie in silence. And that's it. Chris, here's activities. Nathalie Emmanuel is going to be in Francis Ford Coppola's next movie with Adam Driver. Maybe they'll give her more juicy part. I hope so. Because, wasn't this one. I can see why she would have been attracted to this role. It's just, the material doesn't serve her well. Doesn't serve anyone really well. Chris, you make this movie sound bad. I'm going to stick to watching Lost Boys. Do that. Much better movie, Toshiba. Much better movie. Much better vampire film. Oh, my Lord. Chris, did you know The Invitation was written by Blair Butler? She was a host for G4. Displays RE connection. And she also wrote The Hell Festival. I never saw those other two. I know who Blair Butler is. Huh. Yeah. Bit of a waste. I want to watch it, but after this review now. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I never want to say to someone, like, don't see it. I mean, see it if you want to check it out. But just know going in that very predictable. You know what you're getting into. It spins its wheels for a while. It's like, okay, let's get to the fun stuff. And it takes too long. And it doesn't really earn the fun stuff in the end. And it's not even that fun. Yeah. His name is Count Walter. Well, it makes sense to name him an old man because technically he is old. He's like, I think in the movie they say he's over 1,000 years old or something because he's like, I've been called many names. I've been called Vlad the Impaler. I've been called Nosferatu. In some of your Hollywood films, I've been called. And she's like, no. He's like, I'm never going to tell. But yeah. But now he's called Walter. That's what he's called. G Major, thank you for the 100 biddies. I appreciate it. He must be went on a Breaking Bad binge. He's like, this is the best show ever, and I've been seeing a lot of shows. That must be it. Count Wally. Yeah, chap. So, I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, bit of a waste. There's also a lot of other like Dracula references throughout where it's like, huh? Yeah, I see what we're referencing right there. Like, I'll tell you right now, there's Harker. There's like a Mina Harker reference, and they're like, this is the Harker residence? Yes. This is Mina Harker speaking. It's like, yeah. Could have been named Count Juicy. That's true. Yes, Jeff. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you want to check it out, check it out. Believe me, I'd be curious to hear a different opinion on this movie. But for myself, because I like vampire films. There's a lot of vampire movies I like. Like I said, in my top 10 recently, there's just better material out there. I'm trying to think of like the more recent vampire films that we've gotten, like in this particular, this decade, nothing so far. The 2010s, there's been some fun stuff. Stakeland, I think, is great. I think Stakeland's a really fun vampire movie. Obviously, Let Me In, Let the Right One, I think was pretty good. And then in the 2000s, we got some good vampire films, Daybreakers and 30 Days a Night, so. Morbius. Oh, fuck, that's the other vampire. I was like, there's another vampire movie that came out this year. What was it? Morbius. Wow, Chad, what a fucking trifecta of vampire films. Morbius, Day Shift, and The Invitation. Wow. It's been, listen, if you're a vampire fan, it's been a rough year for vampire movies. Yuck. Not great. Oh, of course, Twilight, yes. Mm-hmm. The greatest romance. I think Twilight had a better romance. There's more to laugh at. I'll tell you this much. At least I can laugh at Twilight. Not a lot to laugh here. Not a lot to laugh at here. Not a lot of unintentionally funny things. It's kind of dull. Kind of boring. Any case, Jim. But that's my review for The Invitation. I'll be posting that to YouTube very soon. Probably noon tomorrow. Then Empire Strikes Back will be going up tomorrow as well. But now, my friends, yeah, that's right. We're getting Blade. Maybe this year sucks. This is a bad year for vampire films, but next year we are supposed to be getting Marvel's Blade, the MCU's version of the character, which I'm very curious about. They a hell of a legacy to live up to, especially that first Blade film in '98, which I often say, which a lot of other people often say, is the grandfather of the modern day superhero film. Chad, so I'm hoping for the best, but we'll see.